Did you know that Viognier was first planted in South Africa by Charles Back and his team at Fairview Estate in Paarl? The vineyards were planted in the early 1990s, but it was only in 1997 that Fairview released their first vintage. Just 3 barrels of South Africa's first Viognier were made, and soon after its release it went on to win a Best White Wine of the Year award. Now, Viognier as a cultivar originally comes from the Northern Rhone in France, and it can be extremely extroverted, even when it's in a quiet mood. It's kind of like the grape equivalent of Nikki Minaj after a few bottles of her Myx Fusion Moscato. I mean, even when it's grown in its home of the Northern Rhone, which I might add is a fair deal cooler than Paarl in South Africa, even then, it can positively explode with really ripe notes of apricot and peach and sickly sweet floral honeysuckle, and then there's this really quite distinctive bitter almond note in there as well, and alcohol levels can get really high. So Viognier, it's just a lot to handle. But over the last 20 years, South African winemakers and viticulturists have slowly begun to understand what made this grape so famous in the first place. And so they've started choosing slightly cooler sites, perhaps harvesting slightly earlier, and this new emerging style of Viognier is beginning to deliver some really quite enchanting results. If you're looking to track down a few of these cooler climate Viogniers to see what I'm on about, then perhaps start with wines like Strandveld's Viognier, which is from Agulhas. You can also taste the Lismore Age of Grace Viognier, which is using fruit from Elgin and also the Cape South Coast. Then there's the Fledged Redemption Viognier, also from Elgin. And then from the raised foothills of Ashton, there is the Mary Lebeau Viognier, which, although it is slightly bigger in style, is still very well balanced. Now, the reason we're talking about Viognier at all is because today's hand-drink solo wine of the day is the Sutherland Viognier Roussanne White Blend, which is vinified by winemaker Rudy Schultz. Rudy is one of 5 brothers, of which 3 of them have become really renowned winemakers here in South Africa. So Rudy is the winemaker at Thelema Estate in Helshoogte up in Stellenbosch. Then his brother Paarl, also working in Stellenbosch, is the long-time cellar master at the estate of Hartenberg. And finally there is Gunther Schultz, who is the winemaker at Balea, and he's working with these crazy limestone rocky soils down on the Cape South Coast, which is a really, really exciting emerging region for Chardonnay in South Africa. At this point you might ask, hey, but if Rudy is the winemaker at Thelema, then what's all this talk of Sutherland?
What gives, man?
Yeah, what's up with that?
Well, the Sutherland label represents a range of wines made with fruit from vineyards in Elgin that are owned by Thelema Estate. So technically the full name of the series is the Thelema Sutherland wines, but that's a mouthful. The reason this wine is so impressive is not just because it is a bright light in the leading elegant edge of what Viognier can be in South Africa, but also because it's a kind of crazy blend, blended with another Northern Rhone cultivar, Roussanne. And perhaps it becomes even crazier when you realize that both Viognier and Roussanne can be these epically blousy, overbearing, sweet fruit and floral type wines. So when you taste what this is like in the glass, you'll realize just how insane a feat it is to produce a wine like this. And when we do get into the glass and give this guy a sniff, well, what we're not greeted by are overwhelming, overripe apricot, peach, and sickly sweet honeysuckle. Instead, there's a kind of savory, salty, flinty, smoky, reductive element going on. And then from between those shards of savory elements, there's a herbal lime leaf, and then come the more classic stone fruit, white nectarine, overlaid with these really vivid notes of tart orange. And when you let the wine warm in the glass a little longer, you also get these very subtle hints of oak-driven sweet spice, some smoked walnut, and a little bit of nutmeg. When we actually get to taste the wine, well, I mean, I drank this wine blind, served blind, a month ago, and I took detailed notes on what I was tasting. So for me to be able to taste that, then read my notes, and then taste it now and still be surprised by how incredibly elegant it is, well, I mean, it's just surprises on surprises, isn't it? Up front there's this just absolute pristine, clean, clear, crisp, juicy lime acidity, but it's not lean or angular or acerbic. It's actually got a lovely sort of sweet hint that works in there with it, which I guess makes it a little bit more like a Chardonnay-esque lime cordial element going on. And then, as we mentioned on the nose, the tart, pithy, textured citrus element is layers over that. And again, offsetting the slightly tartar notes are slightly sweeter homemade lemonade. And then right on the finish, there's another little burst, an encore of that herbal slight lime leaf type note. This is honestly one of the crispest, cleanest, most elegant white wines I've had from South Africa in a long time, and it's kind of the sort of wine that you want to serve to those wine snobs who say that they only ever drink Chablis. Okay, so that's all we have time for today, but if you enjoyed the video, then support us on Patreon so that we can make more of these videos, and subscribe to the Hand Drink Solo YouTube channel, where we publish at least 6 videos each month talking about things like wine science, wine history, unusual cultivars or blends, and some of the dynamic winemaking styles that are coming out of the South African winelands.